Hi everybody. So I wanted to do a couple examples from the homework. We are going to go out of order, and it's fine if you go out of order. I'll just know you watched my video. So we're going to go and do 3 problems out of order, and then you can go fill in the rest of the problems. Again, I don't care if they're written out of order. It just shows me that you watched the video with me. Okay, so here's the first problem on your homework. So this is in order, the first one. Now what I want you to look at is this 2 and this 2. They're not connected to these x's, and that's a big confusion for students. So I want you to think of this 2 as separate and this 2 as separate. Even though they randomly put these multiplication signs, really this is how it should be written. 2 times x to the 0 times 2 times x to the negative 2 times y cubed times x to the negative 2 times y to the negative 1. Multiplication problems are not connected. This could have been written in any order they wanted to. But I don't know why they kind of choose to make these connected, and that really confuses students a lot of times. So if I were to write this problem and not confuse students, I would have written it this way. Okay, now let's start combining things. So this 2 gets multiplied with this 2, like regular. 2 times 2 is 4. Okay, now let's look at the x's. I have 0 x's here. We'll talk about what that means in a minute. Negative 2 here and negative 2 here. Okay, you know that anything to the 0 power becomes a 1. So I'm just going to write this as a 1. And 2 times 1 or 4 times 1, basically it doesn't matter because anything times 1 is itself. So I just kind of crossed it out. Now, you can add these two together, which is what I'm going to do right now. Negative 2 plus negative 2 is x to the negative 4. Because negative 2 plus negative 2 is negative 4. Okay, I'll deal with the negative in a minute. Now let's go to the y's. So for the y's, I have y cubed and y to the negative 1. I'm going to add them. 3 plus negative 1 is 2. So y to the 2. Okay, now notice this x has a negative. Nothing else has a negative. The others are going to stay on the top. So 4 and y squared get to stay on top. But because x is negative, it has to cross the line and change the sign to a positive. And this is my final answer. I want to double check that I only have each letter or number written once. There's no other numbers besides 4. Y is written once, x is written once. So it looks like I'm done. No negative exponents, nothing to the 0 power. We're good. Okay, let's move on to a random next one. I picked one that looked a little bit harder. Number 8. Okay, so first let's deal with the numbers. And you can pause this video if you need to write this down. 4 over 3 is just going to stay 4 over 3. I can't reduce 4/3. It's just a fraction. And you're not going to do something like subtract these numbers. They're just regular numbers. So 4 over 3 stays. Now let's see what happens. First, I'm going to get rid of this negative m to the negative 3. It needs to cross the line and change the sign. This m gets to stay on the bottom because it's positive, and now I'm going to move this one to the bottom as well. So it crosses the line and changes the sign to a positive. Okay, now let's deal with the n's. This n needs to cross the line and change the sign. N to the negative 1 needs to cross the line and change the sign. Well, so does this n. Crosses the line and changes the sign. Okay, so what I have done is move everything to the right spot it's supposed to be at. I'm going to erase this real quick and just show you. Notice that we haven't done too much. This 4 and 3 stayed in place. This n had to move to the top. This m had to move to the bottom. And this n had to move to the bottom. Now let's again deal with things that look like 4/3. We can't reduce. It stays 4/3. Okay, now let's look at these red n's. I have more n's on the bottom than I do on the top, so I'm going to write an n immediately on the bottom. 3 minus 1 is 2. So 3n squared. Now let's deal with these m's. They're both on the bottom. They're going to stay on the bottom, and I'm going to add them. 4 plus 3 is 7. M to the 7th. Okay, so we're done. A common question is, do I have to write these in a certain order? No, I wouldn't mark you wrong for writing this, but on a multiple choice test, it's always going to be alphabetical order. So 4/3, M to the 7th, N squared. It's always just going to be written in alphabetical order. So you can see that looks a little different than this, but you just have to be able to find your answer on a multiple choice quiz or test. Okay, last one I want to do is number 12. Okay, again, I don't like how it looks like the 2's are connected. They're not. They could have written it like this, or you know what? They don't even have to write those multiplication symbols. 2m negative 3, 2m negative 3, all over m negative 2. Okay, now be careful what's going to move. I'm going to highlight everything that's going to move. This is going to move because it's negative. This is going to move because it's negative. This is going to move because it's negative. They're going to switch. This is positive and this is positive, so let's just deal with that. What's 2 times 2? 4 on top. This m to the cubed crosses the line, changes the sign to a positive. This m to the negative 3 crosses the line, changes the sign to a positive. This m to the negative 2 crosses the line, changes the sign to a positive. And we already dealt with 2 times 2. Okay, now let's see what we can keep doing. 4 stays on top. M squared, well, let's do this first. 3 plus 3 is m to the 6. It's like writing out, you could, I mean, if it helps you, you could write out 3 m's and 3 m's. That's 6 of them, and 2 on top. The last step is to subtract. I have more m's on the bottom than I do on the top. So I'm going to write an m on the bottom. 6 minus 2 is 4. That is my final answer, 4m to the 4th. How could somebody have written all of this out if they liked to? They could have done this. Look, 2 of these are going to cross off with 2 of these, leaving 1, 2, 3, 4 on the bottom. It's just easier for me to subtract rather than write all these m's out, but in Algebra 1, you would have written all of them out. Okay, you can shut this down and finish the homework problems that I didn't do.